Hello and welcome to Top Story. Speculation is mounting in Britain that the leader of the ruling Labour Party, Gordon Brown, is on the verge of calling an early general election. A series of polls suggest that Labour has established a comfortable lead over the opposition Conservative Party. Brown doesn't have to call an election until 2010, but has been riding high on a wave of popularity since he took over as Prime Minister from Tony Blair in June. He may calculate that this is his best chance to maximise Labour's polling advantage and demoralise the Conservatives. If he calls an election now, it could take place as early as October the 25th, but he may be waiting for the return of Parliament on October the 8th, which would mean an election on November the 1st at the earliest. Conservative Party leader David Cameron claims to be unfazed by the growing pressure. At the party's annual conference on Sunday, he said an early election would be a huge challenge, but the Conservatives could win. Well, joining me now to assess the likelihood of a snap election and a record fourth victory in a row for the Labour Party is Patrice de Beer, a senior analyst at Open Democracie and former London correspondent of Le Monde. Thanks very much for being on Top Story, Patrice. Gordon Brown doesn't actually have to go to the polls till 2010, so why go now?
Well, because the economy is not doing as well as it had. Remember that Gordon Brown's popularity comes from his successes, economic successes as a chancellor, and Britain has been hit by the real estate crisis in the States. Economic figures are not as good as they were, and the red lights are on for next year. So if he waits too long, his image as the wizard of economy might be damaged. And
I suppose he could claim too that he needs a mandate, that it was Tony Blair who was elected as Prime Minister. It would make him feel better if he got the mandate from the British public.
Yes, and that would give him 5 straight years to govern. Some people are pushing him not to stand because he still has 3 years. But most of his cabinet are in favor of snap election, especially now that the latest polls are devastating for David Cameron, who was a good Tory leader against Blair, but who doesn't seem to have understood what's behind Gordon Brown.
Gordon Brown seems to have taken the Conservative Party completely by surprise, doesn't he? I mean, we go back to June when Cameron was riding pretty high in the polls, almost level pegging with Tony Blair, higher in some polls. The expectation was that when Gordon Brown came in, that things would get even easier for the Conservatives.
Yes, that's what Blair's friends were saying at that time. But the latest figures are staggering. Even on Cameron's pet projects, environment, Gordon Brown, who has never been known for his attraction for environment, is ahead, and on leadership is far ahead of Cameron. And in front of this sort of meltdown of Cameron's image, I think he has an excellent chance to win the next elections, and he knows it.
And the Conservative Party appears divided as well about whether Cameron is the right leader at all. A critical moment for David Cameron, in fact, now, because the Conservative Party conference is underway. He's really got to stamp his authority on the party, hasn't he?
Yes, he does, because he was the ideal candidate against Tony Blair. He was sort of a Tory Tony Blair. And now his ideas are not as popular as they were among the Tories, and the Tories are split between the liberals who want to hit at the centre and try to find new voters, and the traditional right-wing basis of the party, which is clearly unhappy about these young politicians. I think they are more used to older politicians like Maggie Thatcher.
Well, Norman Tebbit, as an example, he's sniping behind the scenes at David Cameron just as the conference gets going. It's not good for David Cameron, is it, that there's so little unity in the party?
It's not good, but Norman Tebbit has been doing that with any Tory candidate. But besides that, the fact that Maggie Thatcher went to number 10 and had a picture taken with Gordon Brown is an amazing asset for him among Tory voters.
4 Labour wins in a row, that really would be crushing for the Conservative Party, wouldn't it? And I presume it would almost certainly mean the end of David Cameron's reign as leader of the Conservative Party as well.
Definitely, but they will have to find the right candidate. They have been looking for a candidate since Blair took over, and that's more than 10 years ago, and they are still looking for the right candidate who wouldn't be too much to the right, not too much to the left, and not too much a media candidate, but someone with a stronger personal and political basis than David Cameron.
Gordon Brown seems to have been shamelessly stealing the Conservative clothes in the last few weeks. Do you think that's part of a deliberate strategy to undermine the position of the Conservative Party in the run-up to an election?
I think it looks like it. Gordon Brown is a ruthless politician. He looks like a principled Presbyterian coming from Scotland, but he's also a ruthless politician. We saw it when he managed to unseat Tony Blair a few months ago.
Assuming that he does go for this early election, what do you think the key issues are going to be?
Well, mostly leadership, but then he will try to ride on his past economic successes and try to avoid being caught off balance by a Northern Rock crisis. And then will be the question of Iraq, and environment seems to be coming back on.
Do you think he may make an announcement on withdrawal of British troops from Iraq before an election, or would that be too much like electioneering?
Well, if he needs to, I think he's ready to do that.
Yeah. Do you think it would go down well with the electorate, though, or do they think that's it's a bit of a cheap manoeuvre?
I think when you see how bad Iraq was for Tony Blair, I think to try to have Iraq behind him might be an asset.
Patrice, if I could just put you on the spot here, if you were a betting man, what would be your favourite date for an election? What do you think he's going to go for?
I think the sooner the better, because traditionally British voters don't like to vote in winter, and October, early November would be the latest dates this year. Otherwise, he would have to wait until next spring, and next spring might be too late.
Yeah, but the Brits don't like voting in winter. It's pretty miserable, isn't it? So you can understand.
Yes, the further north you go, the worse winter can be.
Okay, thanks very much. That's all we have time for today. Thanks to Patrice de Beer of Open Democracy. Join us again for another edition of Top Story tomorrow. Goodbye for now. Bye.